In this episode, we walk the grounds of historic Mitchellville alongside Executive Director Ahmad Ward and archaeologist Dr. Katherine Seeber. Together, we'll uncover the story of community and freedom that shaped this remarkable place. From its founding during the Civil War to the legacies that still echo today, join me as we explore Mitchellville's past and the lessons it still offers us in the present.
So we are standing in what used to be Greater Mitchellville. The historic Mitchell Freedom Park is only 33 acres. 20 some of that is dry, the rest is wet, of what was a larger town. So when you came in, you passed the airport. Mitchellville used to be from here all the way past the airport. So this is the only area left of Mitchellville that is protected from development. That's one of the other reasons it's very important. Behind me is the ghost structure area, and you are currently walking on a Mitchellville street. So I know these houses are in the right locations because I did the archaeology to figure them out. So we put these houses exactly where they were. We put this road exactly where it was. In 2020, I got a grant as a student to do a massive ground penetrating radar project. So one of the problems with archaeology at Mitchellville is, you guys saw the Cherry Hill School this morning, you've been to it.
Yep.
Every single house here is raised up on piers. So archaeologically, I can't find a foundation. Here is an island, right? So as soon as the Union Army leaves here, there's no more sawmill in production. There's not a fast way to get wood cut. There's also not a whole lot of lumber here. And so after the houses are used initially, we know that they are taken down when they get too old and reused for other things. So I'm not going to find any spare boards. I'm not going to find falling down houses because they would have been, when they were too old to function, taken down and repurposed. No foundations, no building artifacts. So that limits what we can do archaeologically. Additionally, a lot of people, when I started reading about this in 2015 to start doing work here, there was archaeology that was found over here, but this area is a different kind of soil. If you can see it over there, it's basically just sand. And a lot of the literature talked about how it was not going to be easy to find a lot of stuff from Mitchellville because it was a refugee population, right? So you're not coming here with a whole bunch of stuff. And historically, here in the South and other places, Black folks swept their yards every day. So Black people are coming outside of their house, they're sweeping their yard for hygiene, also for spiritual hygiene. So the yard is not going to be littered with trash. So if I went backwards in time and needed to find a house from the 1870s and it was white folks, the way that they made their life makes a different echo in the ground. White people are not sweeping their yards. They are not dealing with their trash in the same way. They are not reusing things in the same way. So everything I had learned was not going to provide me with what I needed here. So we had to think of a new way to find these buildings. And on that journey, I also figured out that the buildings don't matter as much as the yards around them. And that's from talking to descendants. So what we decided to do, when I was doing the archaeology over here at the church, it was really difficult to see what was going on. I had senior archaeologists, state archaeologists, professors, everybody coming to look at what I could find or what I was finding because it didn't make any sense until we did something called resistivity, which is basically this massive metal fork. You jam it in the ground and then you send an electric pulse from one side of the fork to the other, and it reads how fast it's rolling from one side to the other. And that tells you about moisture in the soil.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
And so if you have an area that's wet, it's going to read blue. If you have an area that's dry, it's going to read pink. And I was sitting right there with Dr. Emery Campbell, and it was 2019, and I was telling him I was having a hard time. And I was like, can you tell me anything you remember about the houses? Anything you remember, everything and anything. And he was like, well, one thing I do remember is as a child, a small child, we would always play under the houses because underneath them, all this sand gets piled up in little hills. It's windblown sand. It's really fine. When you leave and look at Cherry Hill School, you can see the windblown dunes underneath it. And he's like, we used to play trucks under there and it's cool. And then it hit me and a student named Benjamin Heckman, who is now finishing his master's degree in Albany, and he is also a professional archaeologist. And Ben and I were sitting there, and we realized that if there's this windblown sand under the buildings, and it's different than the soil around it, we might be able to find that. We might be able to find just this different kind of soil, which is an insane thing to do as an archaeologist, right? You're like pitching to your senior operational people, I would like to look for smaller sand, please.
Right.
But that sand stayed more wet. It was finer, it held water, and for however long that building was standing, it was holding moisture longer. So when we ran the resistivity through it, it was very clear. A rectangle popped up where there was soil that was just slightly more wet around.
And that's a key indicator.
And so we put archaeology around it and figured out where the church was.
Oh, nice.
So what we did here is, that was 2019, 2018, 2020. We decided, listen, if Mitchellville is going to develop like we've just heard they want to,
Yep.
and I have figured out that we can find things and you don't even need an artifact. And this is the only place in Mitchellville that's protected. When you leave this gate, every other place is private property.
Yes, we've seen that.
That has no protection under American law. If there was a Mitchellville treasure trove right there under private property, whoever owns it can pull it out, sell it, destroy it, burn it, turn it into gold.
And the likelihood of that actually being is very much so, because all of this was Mitchellville.
Yes, so there's hundreds of citizens on this island that have Mitchellville artifacts on their dining room table or in their houses because they find it when they're gardening.
Damn.
Or the destruction during development is pretty absolute. So they go down really far because this is an island and there's no rocks, so they have to put all this foundation in. So the JPGA cottages right here, those went up in the time I've been working here, and I watched the artifacts roll out of the sand into a gutter or get churned under. So we decided, because of those three things, this is the only protected spot. We don't even need artifacts maybe. And they want to develop here. We needed to survey the entire park. So we took ground penetrating radar. Myself and a crew of 5 archaeologists started in COVID in November of 2020 and went to that tree line and started running ground penetrating radar.
Starting right here at where the edge of the
right up
walkway is?
there. It's even further on that tree line.
Okay.
We ran ground penetrating radar, electric resistivity, and then something called EM, which is looking at deep magnets and the magnetometry of the earth. And we ran those machines all the way from here to the beach. And that was my dissertation, is reading those results and figuring out if I could find where Mitchellville people were doing stuff ahead of time, or the probability of it. So when they are building the interpretive center, when they're building this research building, when they're building Freedom Plaza, they can put into the equation, move this, or we're gonna have to do archaeology. Because the worst thing that could happen is they start digging for a foundation, and all of a sudden they've destroyed Mitchellville as the only caretakers of it, right? Like, wouldn't that stink?
Yeah.
So I did that, and my team was incredible. And we found these houses doing the exact same thing as we did before. We found spots that under the ground had soil that were different, wetter, more compact. And then around it, we have these areas in the yard, like right here, that were full of something that I realized were activity areas. So I realized the thing that actually had deep meaning was the places in which Mitchellville people were doing the work of being free people. Where were people doing laundry? Where are people cooking? Where are people sweeping? Where are people sewing nets? Where are they doing their life? And that, when I could find those places, that was what descendants wanted. When I can take a person who's related to this place, or someone who's not, and say, your feet are standing where she stood.
Right.
And she was one of the first people who was free in 6 generations. And she right there spent her life raising free babies and doing free work.
It has a whole different meaning to it.
And so that's what changed. That's what we did. So these here, when we were putting them in, I dug a hole where each of the metal posts go into the ground. The rest is left intact. But I did do archaeology in some of the yards, and we'll stop at one up along the way. But every panel here is a panel that I have read, that I helped write, that I went through and found sources for. A lot of these are documents that I found in the archive while I was writing my dissertation. And the reason we did that is because there's no index, there's no encyclopedia about Mitchellville. And so if I was going to get the money to do this GPR, I can also do the money to do the archival work. So my dissertation became an encyclopedia of Mitchellville things. So all of these different maps and things, like I remember the day I found this. This is a painting by somebody named A.W. Waud, W-A-U-D,
Okay.
Alfred. So I was in the Library of Congress archives just looking and looking and looking. And remember, I did this for 7 or 8 years. So I finally got it down to a point where I knew where to look and what to look for. And we had no, quote unquote, no drawing of Mitchellville other than one that was printed in a newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this in the Library of Congress because I found this man's name. I chased down everything he ever drew and hand went through them looking for something. And this was labeled, I think it was labeled Port Royal Headquarters.
Okay.
This is Hilton Head. This is the headquarters of the Army right there, which I know is right here. And that means these buildings right here is Mitchellville.
Right. That's dope.
So each one of these contains multitudes. They each have a theme, and they come from the knowledge that myself and my archaeological team were able to recover doing both archaeology and archival work. And so I'm really proud of the fact that I can say to any person, I know these are right. Like, I don't know about the rest of them, but these are correct. Like, for example, this is a newspaper illustration showing, remember yesterday Margaret was talking about Dear Sister?
Yep.
There's a lot of white teen volunteers that came down here, white women. It was basically like Teach for America. It was the blueprint for that. That's what she's doing. So this white woman was a volunteer who's coming down here to teach them how to do embroidery to sell. So each one of these panels is also, it's supposed to look like a door and a window because you're looking into a house.
Okay.
But surrounding each house, there is a whole bunch of archaeology that has been left intact that I found doing GPR, which means in the future, if there's better archaeology, we can do it, or it gets to rest. Well, this is shown a lot. A lot.
Yeah, it is.
That's not Mitchellville. That is shown a lot because that was enslaved people on Drayton's Plantation. Before this is Mitchellville, we are standing on Drayton's Plantation.
Like Drayton Hall?
It's the same family, yes. So this...
And Drayton Hall is in Charleston.
And there's also one in Virginia.
Yeah.
So this was Drayton's Plantation. His name was Thomas Drayton. He married Emma Pope, and that's Pope Plantation. That is also her family. So this entire half of the island was Pope and Drayton land. And this photo is used a lot because we know a lot of the people who lived on Drayton Plantation probably could have ended up being Mitchellville citizens, but we don't know that for sure, right? So it's used to illustrate, because we don't have any photographs of people that are Mitchellville citizens yet. There might be some that exist, but I don't know them. We also don't have a single written document by a Mitchellville resident. Every single written document that we have found about Mitchellville is from usually a white northern perspective. So that's why the archaeology is extremely important. Like, for example, this is actually Honeyhorn Plantation. But it's a great representation of what Mitchellville would have looked like in the 1890s.
Is this Fort Howell?
This is kind of one of those oxymoronic situations that should not be happening. All got started through those trees right that way, the Port Royal Sound, Battle of Port Royal, November 7th, 1861. Union forces sailed down, fired on Fort Walker on this side, Fort Beauregard on the St. Helena side, 3-hour situation, bombarded both areas. Confederate forces got out of here, which also meant the overseers got out of here, which left this number ranges so much, she can correct me. It's somewhere between 20 and 26 plantations on the island. I keep hearing a different number every time. And you got to remember, like, when we talk about plantations in spaces like on the Sea Islands, we're not talking about plantations that would have like 300 enslaved people. It'd be like 40, 50, smaller scale situations. But now everybody's gone. Nobody has told the enslaved people, hey, look, good luck. Here's what you should do. We out of here. They just went to where the Army was, and the Army just happened to be across the marsh.
Yeah.
And so they start flooding the area. And the wild thing about information flow is, there's no technology, but immediately everybody knows that to get to Hilton Head, you could be free.
Mm.
And so Hilton Head becomes the Department of the South. And I went through all of this schooling 7 hours north of here, where they just pour Civil War stuff in your head like this. Just all you get. Boom, boom, boom. And nobody ever mentioned that Hilton Head was the Department of the South for the Union Army. I never heard that till I got here. So there was anywhere between 30 to 40,000 Union troops on this 12-mile island.
The crazy thing about that is that I wouldn't have, if I hadn't been coming out here, I wouldn't have even thought that it would have been in the South. Just based, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I'm thinking, I would have thought
Hilton Head,
Indiana
oh,
or Illinois or some, one of the northern states.
Well, that's because
right?
Ohio has infiltrated this island for years.
Right. You know what I'm saying? And so, but to your point, it goes to show just how much you weren't informed about the South during those times, during our K through 12 experiences.
It just kind of, it's wild. And as we move along talking about this Mitchellville stuff, and you hear the people who were involved in it, it's like, why aren't we seeing this? Like, we didn't put this Harriet Tubman statue here just because we like Harriet Tubman.
Right.
Like, she had touch points here. Like, why do we not know that?
Yeah.
This panel right by itself was Simon Cameron, Secretary of War from Lincoln. He gave money to Mitchellville to build the chapel. That's the only church that's not still standing, St. Simon. All three of the churches on Beach City Road are all Mitchellville churches. They're in different locations, but this is the most historic road on the island. Hmm. And William Lloyd Garrison visited here and spoke, wanted to come, heard about it, asked to come visit. And they were doing a tour of the South. They were headed to Fort Sumter for a commemoration around the end of the war, or the ending of the war. And he said, I want to see that Freedmen town that, we had heard so much about while he was in Savannah. And so he comes and speaks at First African Baptist the day before Lincoln is assassinated. So I found out about 3 years ago that he had actually invited the president to come with him on that trip to the South. Yeah, he should have went.
Yeah, should have came on down.
He should have went. Maybe things would have turned out a little differently. But then, of course, Harriet. And, Combahee River Raid, they freed 756 people. She brings a large percentage of them back to Hilton Head. They settle here, And so you got Clara Barton, who started the American Red Cross, was here as a nurse, knew about Mitchellville during the Civil War. And when the thing that made sure there was no Mitchellville for us to see, which was a 1893 hurricane, which was, at that time was America's greatest natural disaster until Galveston in like 1911. Barton is the one who got this place back on its feet because the government wasn't moving. Most people here look like me. The government's not putting no resources over here in the Sea Island. And so she personally started a national campaign to raise money for Sea Islands, Beaufort County, Hilton Head. And she got this place back in order. We don't know nothing about this. And it's wild that a community that was getting so much attention during the 19th century in newspaper articles and all kind of stuff. Like there's articles in Philadelphia papers, New York papers, Chicago papers. But nobody knows anything about it now, So our job is to try to fix that.
Yeah.
As much as humanly possible. And so we have been very fortunate to have really, really, really solid foundational people who started this ball running before I knew what Mitchellville was. I was in Birmingham, Alabama at the Civil Rights Institute there. I don't know anything about Mitchellville, man. This comes across my desk and I'm like, oh, okay, well, let me see what's into this. And then I hear about all this other stuff. And so people like Thomas Barnwell and Johnny Mitchell and Ben Williams. Then down the line, Shirley Peterson, who's the person who hired me. And like they had put all of these bricks into the ground. So when I get here, we got a nice runway to make this thing happen.
To see the development is just absolutely amazing. The progress, you know what I'm saying? So y'all
Yeah.
have done amazing work. So
Man,
I
we
wanted
got some
to
cool
shout
stuff
out to
coming down
y'all.
the pipeline. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We got some really nice stuff coming down the pipeline here. And it's this process. It doesn't go as fast as I want it to, but at least there's motion.
That's right.
We'll take motion every day.
Yep.
So after this battle, people come flocking here. The guy who was in charge, David Hunter, had this bright idea that he would put a rifle in the hand of every colored male who would join the fight. And if they did that, he would free them unilaterally. Remember, they're pseudo free, but considered contraband of war. You know, contraband does not have a positive connotation. So he's saying, yes, if you fight for the Union Army, you'll be free. And, you know, he gets away with it for about 2 months, 2 or 3 months. And the right people in Washington had not heard about it yet. Then they heard about it. And you can imagine in 1862, folks were not excited about black people with rifles, whether side they were on. And so it becomes a scandal. Lincoln is friendly with Hunter, doesn't want to ruin his career. Reassigns and in comes this guy named Ormsby Mitchell. Born in Kentucky, raised in Ohio. Of course, there's an Ohio thing again. Astronomer. In fact, they helped to start the Cincinnati Observatory. They still have a telescope he brought there, I think, in the 1850s. And somewhat of an abolitionist. Father had owned people, told his son that was the worst mistake he'd ever made. Stressed to him that he shouldn't get involved in that. Comes here, sees the lay of the land. You've got barracks that almost look like a shanty town here. It's not well regulated. There's all kind of foolishness happening. He gifts them this acreage. Said, this is your land. You build on it, grow on it. You know, maintain your families, build churches, businesses, start a community. And he gives them access to the Union Army sawmill. They have a competition between Contraband and Army carpenters to decide who can design the homes. One of the Contraband wins. So these houses that you see in this background were designed by one of the brothers who were here. Mm-hmm. Depending on the scholarship, some people say they were building a house a day. Some say they were building 4 to 5 houses a day. If you got that many people here building one house, it's only 12 by 16 feet. Sounds stupid. So they'll build about 4 or 5 houses a day. But you know, and you've got to manage the early conversations with Mitchellville with the absolutely prevalent racism.
Yeah.
Like you got some reports, like these pictures we get from a guy named Samuel Cooley in 1864. But the reports that go along with it, this guy is, oh man, it's just dripping with foolishness, you know. The way they denigrated Abraham Murchison, the mayor, in that report, and this guy, this is not a dumb man. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? When Hunter put the word out about people joining the fight, he rounded up 150 men in Savannah and said, let me go over here, we're gonna fight. You know, this is not just some mm-hmm. It was wild stuff. If you ever read the report,
yeah,
it's wild. And one of the things that I think about often when we start talking about these folks here, I don't know if they ever appreciated how safe they were in the situation. Mm. You know, because you've got this Army presence, and we're not going to act like all interactions with the Union Army were positive. But for the most part, there was an agreement.
Yeah.
There, right? And then when the Army has to pull people off to go to Charleston and Richmond and other places, colored troops built Fort Howell, which is right down the street, as a protection here. If our fort was never fired on, so you got a chance to create this community, which is, you know, somewhat of a high-level municipality in some ways. They had organized trash pickup. You know what I'm saying? This is happening in the 1860s. And so mayor, council form of government, you know, you're handling all of your situations at the courthouse, at the church, which serves as the courthouse. You know, that was the town hall. You know, you did all your business there. You got a school system that comes up in 1866, and that is the first mandatory school system in South Carolina. It was here. And so the idea of that kind of work happening and it not being in every history book in the state, I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. So we have to be the resource to try to fix that. Joyce and her team are doing an amazing job trying to reach out in the schools, bring students here, do programs that are impactful. You know, Katie's work has been instrumental in us not just getting the narrative together, but using some of this for us to get some funds to do other things. And then we got an amazing board. I got a couple of champions at the state level in politics, you know, who look out for us. I mean, we've probably received somewhere around $5.3 million from the state.
Wow.
For this project, and that's all within the last 6 years. So we're in a good space. This is a $22.8 million project. We are right at the halfway mark. So I'm like 9.5. We went into a quiet phase in February 2022 on this, and so we're inching closer. But this is the hard half. You know, that last half is always the one you got to battle for, and most of that is the Interpretive Center, which will go right there, which will talk about history of Mitchellville, make some connections to 21st century situations, and everything on this space will be interpreted through the lens of freedom, democracy, citizenship, and opportunity.
This was the map that I was given when I started working here. This is the map that other archaeologists found in the 80s, and this is the map that was used over and over again to talk about Mitchellville. We are standing here in this offshoot down there.
Okay.
And a great example of putting community thoughts into science is I was talking to Murray Christopher, who you guys heard about yesterday from Miss Margaret, and Ben Green, who I just talked about over there. And I asked them, I had a sneaking suspicion that for a long time, the archaeologists had been orienting this map wrong. So for a long time, this road right here, archaeologists had been lining up with that road, Beach City Road. And they were saying that this road had never moved. And so that would make all the houses in a certain location, obviously, and you can pace it out. So I sat down and I was looking at it and I was like, but that's not how the shore is in reality. Because I have better map technology now. I can put this map on a modern one and move it around. The people who came before me didn't have that luxury, right? So I sat down and I asked them, do you guys know if Beach City Road ever moved? And they're like, oh yeah, in the 60s when they paved it. It used to be 2 roads and then they put Beach City Road diagonally across where it was. So in reality, this goes like this. Across here now is Beach City Road, across this.
Okay.
So once I oriented the map correctly, which is more like this, all of the archaeology made more sense.
Okay.
Then I could start predicting where houses were. And if I hadn't asked that question, we might still be operating on a faulty map.
And saying that right there would have been.
So if you look at the old panels that were put here before we did recent archaeology, they have you on this map in the wrong spot. They have it oriented on the wrong spot. And so that's one part of this map that's amazing. And the second part is while I was doing my dissertation, that's part of a map. It's a quarter. So I had never seen the rest of it.
Oh.
Ooh, it goes like this.
Oh, am I on the wrong side? Yeah. A little do-si-do over here.
So it's actually a quarter of a giant map.
Ah, okay.
And so, I don't know, I was 6 years into my research before I figured out that the file name was ... It was like a whole bunch of letters and then .3. So I was like, well, where are 1 and 2?
Yeah.
So then I found 1 and 2 and 4. So when you put this whole map together,
It makes more
this
sense.
changes a lot of what we know about Mitchellville. For
Absolutely.
example, you can see if you zoom in, there is a road that comes out of Mitchellville and goes right here. It walks across this beach, across the water, and goes right to
One of the.
The Army. This is the Army base right here.
Now, where would have the plantation home been?
So the original plantation home, one of the Pope plantation home, there's one here, and then the Drayton plantation home is over here.
It's over there. Did those families marry into each other?
Yes.
Okay.
So the evidence of knowing this road existed, I had hypothesized that people are walking across the beach to go there.
Yeah.
And that's important because we got to talk about jobs. But this map tells me they built a whole road
Yeah.
specifically so people could go to work.
Go to work, yeah.
So in finding the other 3 panels, it changed the way that we can think about the daily lives of Mitchellville.
For sure.
And that took me years, right?
To find that little big nugget.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like,
Baby nugget, as you would
the
say,
other
right?
thing that makes it difficult is like, it's an Army record. So the United States has records from the Army in NARA, the National Archive of Military Things.
Yeah.
It's not accessible and it's not digitized. It's not like the Library of Congress in which you can put in the word Mitchell and stuff pops up. So I had to learn how to use NARA. I had to put in a request because all of those files are still, like, it's not the military's priority, I'm sure, to digitize files from the Civil War.
For sure.
But it's things like that that made the difference between being able to hypothesize and sort of like if around on the truth. And archaeology is difficult because it's not an exact science. So if I'm going to say something, I need like 3 lines of evidence. So that gave me a really good line of evidence for anything I need. It was a really important discovery.
Thanks for watching this visit to Mitchellville. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, share, and help us continue to bring important history to light. See you in the next episode.